Would you like to learn from someone who made it for herself and mentored high officials and companies like Starbucks, MSNBC, British Public Radio, and impacted people more than 35 countries around the globe, who sat with world leaders in the same table, written books? Well, stick around with us to the end, and it will be a treat for you guys. And you might be wondering why I have these two books with me also. We're going to talk about that. Before that, just a few seconds. YTP, Young Titans platform, where young professionals and entrepreneurs join after their college graduation or when they are in the workforce to propel their career, get inspired, and become a part of the thriving community. If you're not part of it, you are missing out. Please share this live or recording to your friends, family, and others, and like our page. Subscribe our channel. Please send us live questions in Facebook comments, and you can always email us too at info@unextleadership.com. YTP fills in the gap from what you know and what you need to know for you to succeed. In short, YTP fills in the gap between you and the leadership as young professionals embarking in the workforce. There are school, colleges, and departments to start a career. On the other hand, there are leadership training and many other technical trainings in each corporation for their workforce. But what is out there for new graduates to excel? Find their best career, or once they start their career, where to go, how to grow. There's nothing existing today to fill in this gap officially. I have seen plenty of people in that subcategory, including myself, who are indecisive of their career path or very much confused. In this platform, we have various speakers or panelists coming each week with different background. Often we have very high achievers, and sometimes we have young generations achievers as well too, to show you and teach you what you can do at your stage, where you are or wherever you are, to excel in your profession or in your career. Now, let me just introduce ourselves, a few of us, so that we can get started. I am Sheikh Rahman, an engineer by background, and like leadership and like to work people and slowly drawn to people who value people and wanted to learn how they do that. My inspiration are a few people that are that include some of the people in this community right here with us. My family, starting from my grandmother, my daughter, my sister, my wife, from whom I learned a lot about leadership basics. I am the founder of Unix Leadership LLC for training and emphasizing the values one needs to have. I like to hang out with people, and I like to share or teach what I know. One reason behind that is that I found out that the teachers learn the most. But anyway, now let's get into who are here with us, and we're in this venture building this YTP. Raj Kapoor, let me introduce you to some folks of who I work with. Raj Kapoor, he is not here today, but he is one of my guides, friends, partners, or mentors, however you call it. He retired himself from a CFO of non-profit organization. He's a guru of finance and knows how to coach an organization, person, or anyone who needs to excel in money matters. Ian Roberts, right here with us. He spoke in YTP a couple of weeks on intentional leadership. Leaders are servers. Ian Roberts is a living proof of that. He's joining us from Scotland today. Aarti Moore from South Africa. Aarti is a dynamic lady and a speaker. She has over 20 years of experience as a successful entrepreneur with 2 international companies, celebrating Humanity International Private Limited as International Diversity and Inclusion Specialist, and KI Leadership Institute Private Limited, specializing in exclusive value-based leadership training programs. And Ron Cooper. Ron and Marty are retired U.S. Force and CIA officers. They are in their 52 years of their marriage and relationship coaches. They serve valuables to others through their Cooper Culture organization. Kamrul Hassan, he is also missing here today, just recently featured in a large circulation of a newspaper in Bangladesh as the founder of CKH Network, very similar to YTP Vision for the youth of Bangladesh who are still in the universities or growing their skills for the workforce. And Dr. Halida, currently Dr. Halida is a faculty of the International Health Department at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg Schools of Public Health. Her achievement and reward will be very long and will be here for a long time. So we're not going to talk about that. So I'm going to skip that with the note that she is the award winner of United Nations Population in 2006. She is our advisor and inspiring faculty and mentor for the Young Titans platform community. We thank you, Dr. Halida. But if you, all of you who are here as a host, if you'd like to say anything or introduce yourself or that I have missed, if you kindly do that, and then I can go ahead and bring up Gloria. Anybody wants to go ahead? No, okay, all right. Well, everybody wants to listen to Dr. Gloria, so Gloria Burgess. So today we actually have a treat for you. From San Antonio to Sydney, Los Angeles to London, Molokai to Montreal, New York City to Nairobi, Gloria has impacted the lives of thousands of people over 35 countries. Clients including Starbucks, MSNBC, Microsoft, British Public Radio, Equal Opportunity Commission, Girl Scout of America, Providence Health System, Embassy of South Africa in Switzerland, National Parliament of Kenya, International Coach Federation, Women's International Network, Royal Dutch Shell, and Teach for America. Gloria came almost accidentally in my life. She showed me how and what a mentor can be like. But just following her closely and get her time as I needed, I learned so much. I am grateful to her for everything she's been doing and encouraging and the support I get from her. She's a wonderful family person that I know. Her leadership teachings are phenomenal. Instead of taking time, let me just go ahead and bring Dr. Gloria in front of you. Just a quick thing before that, who are just joining now. This is Young Titans platform for young professionals to help excel in their career. Please share this live or recorded and join us. You can join us as a mentor, volunteer, or share your knowledge or however you can and become a student as well. In this community, you can send your comments or question in Facebook page or send email to info@unixleadership.com. Of course, we encourage you to ask questions directly in the live session in Facebook comments for the speakers or for any of the hosts or the panelists. But let me not take any more time. Please let me invite Dr. Gloria Burgess. Gloria.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be on the planet today. I just want to say it's an honor, it's a blessing for me to be with you, to serve you, and to lift up and celebrate you, the Young Titans. I want to personally thank Sheikh for his vision, for his commitment, for his energy, for his time, and for his servant heart. So thank you, Sheikh, for inviting me today. Thank you for creating this incredible platform. And I also want to give a shout out to all of your collaborators. You are positively amazing. Thank you so much for pouring your heart and your soul into yourselves and to equip this next generation of leaders and emerging leaders. So I want to share with you today a few things that, I wish someone had shared with me in my younger self. So these are kind of notes to myself as well as for you. And what I want to specifically talk with you about today is what I'm calling a seat at the table. A seat at the table. Now, by table, I do mean a literal table, the tables that you go to, once you're out of college. Maybe you're going for a job interview, maybe you've got the job already and you're in a meeting with your teammates, or maybe you're in a boardroom, talking about the next product or service that your organization is offering or creating. So whatever that means for you, I'm also talking about table as a metaphor okay, as a metaphor, as a stand-in for our voice, okay? So I want to share 3 points with you today. What does it mean to have a seat at the table? What does it take to get it? And how to show up once you have that seat. And I want to start today by telling you a little bit more Gloria Burgess, but it's Gloria McEwen, okay? So I have watched leaders all my life. And for the past probably 4.5 decades or so, I've been a leader. I've studied leadership. I've been a professor of leadership. I work with leaders and organizations, as you heard, Sheikh introduce me, all over the world. I get to do that. But for many, many years, I actually ran the other way. I ran away from leadership. In fact, for many years, I didn't even know the word leadership. Okay, it just was not in my vocabulary. So let me tell you a little bit more about me so you get the picture. Now, I was born in a small rural town in the deep South in the United States, in the state of Mississippi. I was born in Oxford. And for many years, if you know anything about the US, you know that Mississippi was a good place to be from. Okay? When I was a little girl, I actually thought I lived in an all-Black town. Okay? I did not know the meaning of segregation. So every Saturday, my family went what I thought was uptown, but we were actually going, I thought we were going to another town, but we were going uptown, right? And though, I didn't have the words for this as a little kid, I remember feeling this really, tight sensation in my chest and in my belly. And what I realized when I was older is that I was ashamed. You see, when my parents and me and my sisters went uptown, we had to go in through the back door of all of the shops. And I remember my parents calling the shop owners Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, or Mr. and Mrs. Jacob, or whatever. But those shopkeepers called my parents by their first names. Now, as a kid, you don't really know what's going on, but again, I had these sensations in my body, and I had this tightness in my stomach. And I remember how horrifying it was, how terrifying it was to have my parents treated so differently than the way that we had to respect and treat the shop owners. And I remember when I was a little girl, I was maybe, 4 or 5 years old, just, running out of one of those shops and putting my hands on my hips and saying, someday, someday I want to make it so that it's impossible for anybody to treat me or my sisters or my mom or my father or anybody else to treat us differently simply because of the color of our skin. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but that little 4 or 5-year-old Gloria, okay, she was demonstrating an act of leadership. All right. Now, financially speaking, my parents were, in the deep South here, we call it dirt poor. We were very, very poor. But I didn't know that. I mean, as kids, you always have food to eat. There's an apple somewhere. And I remember my mom's table was always what we would call the welcome table, right? Everybody was welcome there. Everybody belonged. And my mom, she was a brilliant lady. She would use her superpowers, right, to transform our usual meal of cornbread and buttermilk to buttermilk and cornbread. So that everybody would have something and feel like they were welcome there. Now, I always had clothes to wear. I was the third girl, and I always wore my sister's hand-me-downs, and I didn't know they were secondhand clothes to begin with, right? I remember when I was about 9 years old, my family had moved from the deep South to the northern part of the United States. And so now we were living in a big city in Detroit. And I remember we were living in a pretty rough neighborhood. And I saw somebody get stabbed to death outside of my house. So we were living in a, tough times, tough neighborhood. By the time I was 12 years old, my family had moved about 10 times. And at this age, we were living in an attic. Okay, now that's the pointy part of the house at the very top. And it's very hard for adults to stand up straight, okay, and for children who are, relatively tall. And I remember several times a year we would go back home, back south to Oxford to visit our extended family. Now, I had a huge family. My mom had 17 brothers and sisters, and so it was like going home to my personal village. And I remember on the long drive down to Oxford, it was about, 2,100 kilometers, 1,200 miles, took about 18 hours. And before we left, my mom would spend the entire day beforehand frying chicken, okay? And that was so we could have food to eat because none of the restaurants would serve us along the way. So I don't know if you've ever driven in a car with hungry kids, but my mom made sure that she didn't have a lot of hungry kids in her car. Now, we always left after midnight. And years later, I asked my dad, I said, why do we always go back south? Why do we always leave around midnight? And he said, well, there were police in the northern states of Ohio and Indiana. And then when you got into the southern states of Kentucky and Tennessee and Mississippi. So we left under midnight because in those northern states, there were police who would actually watch for Black people and arrest them for nothing, just to harass them. And so we left under cover of night so that you couldn't see who was driving the car. Now, I have to tell you, I am grateful for all of these moments. Now, I wasn't grateful at the time, okay, but looking back, I'm now grateful because they have made me who I am as a human being. They have made me who I am as a woman, as an educator, as a parent, as a businesswoman, and an artist and community steward. I'm grateful because all of these moments contribute to who I am, to my voice as a leader, and in making the world a little bit better off, making a difference in my family, my community, my workplaces, and making the difference that only I can make. I'm grateful because all of these experiences, all of these episodes in my life qualify me. They qualify me to have a seat at the table. Now, I want you to really hear this. This is really important. If you take away nothing else today, take away this. I am qualified to have a seat at the table, not because I have a PhD. I'm qualified not because I have 4 other college degrees. Talk about overachiever, right? Okay. I'm qualified not because I worked in corporate America, okay, and lived to tell about it for 20 some years. I'm qualified not because I was the first African-American woman to become the highest ranking executive in the technology industry. Not because I'm an award-winning poet and author, not because of my superpowers as a mom and wife and sister, community steward. I'm qualified just because. Just because. Every single one of us on the planet, we're qualified just because. And don't let anyone tell you any different. We are all born with birthright dignity and birthright qualifications to have a seat at the table. Now, the dominant culture in most places that I've been on the planet will tell you otherwise. Your job is to believe that you are worthy, that you're already qualified. Okay? Now, I was very fortunate to have what I called accidental mentors. I didn't have somebody who paid attention to me on purpose, but I would learn and I would watch, and I would take information in, right? So those are my accidental mentors. And I remember being at a conference one time, maybe, 20 years ago, in the desert in California here in the States. And it was a huge global leadership conference. And I remember listening to one of the speakers. You may have heard his name, Marshall Goldsmith. He is probably one of the best known coaches on the planet. And I think he's one of the most incredible human beings I have ever met. And he was speaking to a room of maybe, I don't know, 500-600 people. Most of them were Caucasian. And there were 3 people of color. 3. I could count them. Fingers of one hand. And all women. And so afterwards, I ran up to Marshall and I grabbed my sister's, hands. And I said, I have a question for you. And I want to ask you this question just because of the way you present yourself and all. And I asked him about a seat at the table. And I didn't use those exact words, but I basically said, we always have to explain ourselves, not once, not twice, but 3 or 4 times. Okay. People pretend like they're listening, but they don't really hear us. I said, what is this about? And he just looked at all 3 of us and he said, there are people in this world who want you to not have a voice. And he said, let me tell you something. You have a voice. Now go off and use it. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, in other words, okay? Make your own lemonade or something, but don't drink that Kool-Aid. And I just remember that moment and that advice from, like I said, this incredible human being. So I want to talk with you today about that seat at the table. Now, this is not just any old seat. I'm going to say to you, this is my seat. And I want you to repeat, this is my seat, okay? This is my seat, not Gloria's seat, but my seat, whatever your name happens to be, okay? So 3 things: having a seat, getting a seat, and how to show up when you get there. So what does it mean? What does it mean to have a seat at the table, to use your voice? To have a seat at the table means to be included and to belong. Okay, now they go together. To be included and to belong. Inclusion is not the same thing as belonging. Inclusion means that you're at the table. It means you're in the seat. Hallelujah, right? Thank goodness for that. It means you've made it to the table, but you want to be there, okay, for reasons other than just warming a seat, right? Remember, inclusion and belonging go together. Belonging means you are welcome. You are welcome up in here, right? Okay, and being welcome means that you're valued, that your presence is valued, that your perspective is valued. Belonging means that your voice is valued, you're wanted, your voice is appreciated, respected, and your voice is understood. Not because you have to explain yourself once or twice or 3 times or 10 times, but because somebody else has taken the initiative to learn about your voice, to learn about you, to build a bridge with you. Now, this means that you don't have to explain yourself ad nauseum, right? You don't have to wonder if you're being heard. You don't have to spin your wheels and worry about imposter syndrome, And imposter syndrome, if you've never heard that term before, means, well, should I be here? Should I really be here? Or am I just a fraud? You belong, okay? You're qualified. Now, it also means that your voice is offered at the table, not just by you, but it's asked for, it's invited, it's hosted by others. That's what belonging means, okay? And first and foremost, you have to shift your mindset, right? And host yourself. Host yourself and invite other people to host you as well, all right? So, number 2, what does it take to get a seat at the table? Well, let's take a look at that. First of all, you might think to yourself, well, it takes know-how. You got to know something, right? Yeah. It takes hard work. It takes being productive. Okay, you got to produce things, right? You got to be reliable. And I'm going to say, yes, it takes all of those things. but it also takes a lot of the, I'm going to say, softer qualities, okay? We call them character qualities. Now, once upon a time, when I was working in corporate America in IT, which I worked there for about 23 years, I remember, working hard, working smart, climbing the corporate ladder, doing all the things, pretending to be all those things, right? And I don't know, maybe about 15 years into my corporate life, I finally got it. I finally got it. I was pretending to be somebody that I wasn't. Okay. My PhD, my doctorate, all my degrees, most of my degrees are in the arts. I'm an artist, first and foremost, right? And I had prepared thinking that I was going to be a professor, of humanities. And about, I don't know, 6 weeks into my doctoral program, I realized, oh my gosh, I have my ladder up against the wrong wall. I don't want to be a professor of the humanities. This place is, the academy at that time was too small of a theater, too small of a stage for me. And so I morphed and I transitioned into this corporate space, right? Taking all of my arts with me, but I didn't bring them into the door of the corporation. Okay, so what happened? I left them in the parking lot. I left most of Gloria, 50% of Gloria, 51% of Gloria in the parking lot, right? And like I said, about 15 years in, I kind of got it, and my husband, bless his heart, he would listen to me over and over, during those years, I would say, well, should I stay or should I go? Should I stay or should I go? Kind of knowing that I was not quite in the right place, but really excelling at what I did. And so what I finally decided was, stop pretending. What a concept, right? Stop pretending. Bring your own voice. Bring your authentic voice. And so I did. I started bringing in my music, my poetry, my dancing, okay, my love of color and culture. And about that time in my career, things began to shift. And I actually started enjoying, really enjoying, like having a party at my workplace, right? And I remember the end of my corporate career in IT, I had the best job on the planet because I was doing what we now call, the internet. And we were building content, we were creating stories, and I was able to use my theater background, right? We were creating virtual theater for customers, for people, real people to enjoy, right? And I was able to bring all of who I was into the organization. I was also able to bring my heart and my soul, not just my head, not just my technical smarts, not just my know-how, right? Okay, which only uses this much of your body, right? I was able to bring the rest of me inside the organization. And like I said, I was having a party. So the character qualities, these softer qualities, things like courage, being brave enough to bring all of who I was to the workplace. Bringing in character qualities, those softer qualities like humility, respect, integrity, faithfulness, passion. I was able to share my own story with my team. And guess what? My team was able to share their story with me and bring more of themselves into the workplace as well, which brought in more joy, right? I brought in things like vulnerability. I was willing to get out of my comfort zone and relearn how to be, not how to do, but how to be inside of an organization. I remember when I drove to Olympia, our state capital, to get my business license to start my own company. I was happy, not because I had left high tech, okay, because I still love high tech, right? But I was happy because I was able to bring all of Gloria to the workplace and have a party while doing it. And now I could bring that same self, that same authenticity to my private practice. okay, which I've had now for, what, 25 years, right? Yes, I started in business when I was 2. All right. All right. So having a seat at the table, getting a seat at the table. I want to talk with you now about how to show up once you're there, okay? Once you show up, how you show up once you're there. So once you have your seat at the table, first of all, you have to show up and be a contributor, okay? You have to not only warm that seat, but you have to make some valuable contributions. And that means contributing in the ways that only you can contribute. You don't show up as a parrot, right? You know, just kind of mimicking or parroting what other people say. You don't show up as a copycat, copying what other people do. You don't show up in a way that you think other people want you to show up, because that's cheating. That's cheating. We don't get the best of you when you do that. You are there at that table for a reason, and you are there because of your expertise, your particular perspective, because of your role or function or the specific topic at the table. You're there with a particular and a unique responsibility to contribute in only the ways you can, right? But most importantly, you're there because your voice is existent nowhere else at the table. You might have the same job function, you might have the same job role as somebody else sitting at the table. Doesn't matter. They don't have your background, they don't have your experience, they don't have your filters, they don't move in the ways that you move through the world. They don't have your voice, right? Now, there are something like, I don't know, 7 billion people on the planet, right? But each one of us is unique. We have a unique fingerprint. We have a unique footprint. We have a unique soul print, a unique voice print. And if you don't bring it, the one of you, the one voice that you have that exists nowhere else on the planet, if you don't bring that voice to the table, if you don't bring your perspective, your special sauce, who will? Who will? Your contribution, your creativity, your special genius will be lost. Your family, your community, your team at work will not have your unique contribution. Now, showing up at the table is also about relationships, okay? It's about building and solidifying relationships. So that means it's not just about you being at the table, right? It's about asking yourself, how am I in relationship to the other people at the table? How am I building bridges with other people? People who may act or look or sound or think differently than me, right? Now, bridge building is something that is cyclical, it's ongoing, it's continuous, and you have to be intentional about building those bridges to forge relationships, okay? Especially if you're like me. Okay, I'm an introvert. It may not seem like it, but I'm an introvert, okay? Give me a nice room with no people in it, and I'm happy as a clam, okay? It takes extra work for me to reach out. It takes extra energy for me to reach out to other people, okay? Now, I know those of you around the screen here probably don't believe that because you know me differently, right? I'm kind of always, but guess what? Okay, after the IMC or whatever, when we're in the room together, I go back to my room and I just go, okay, and I tell John, my husband, just give me 15 minutes. Don't say anything for 15 minutes. Okay, I just need to recharge, right? Okay, but it's something that you have to be intentional about. Building those bridges, one person, one conversation, one walk, one cup of coffee, one lunch at a time, right? So when you show up at the table with your voice, you show up as a bridge builder and you show up with an attitude of service. One of the responsibilities of being at the table is to serve while you're at the table. Now, in my personal village, right, in my cultures of origin, that's a given. It's a given that you're serving as you're leading. You don't lead first and then, when you get 60 or 65 years old, decide to serve. Okay, you're serving. You come out of the, into the birthing room. Okay, serving other people. That's just how it is, right? And so as you're serving others who are not yet at the table, okay, you want to think about the people who need to be there with you, the people who might be overlooked in your organization or even in your family or community, wherever you happen to be, right? It's not just about work. Okay, so you want to be on the lookout. You want to keep your eyes open, your ears open, your heart open. Who else? Who else needs to belong up in here, right? Okay, these are the people who have not been included yet, not necessarily because people are mean, okay, but maybe they just don't have the same eyes or ears or heart, okay, to open up to these people. But these people need to belong, and one of your responsibilities is to help them be included and to help them belong. So in your circles of influence, in your spheres of influence, in your ways of seeing and knowing and being and moving through the world, your responsibility is to serve those folks who are not yet at the table by inviting them and hosting them at the table, okay? You want to do for somebody else what you wished somebody had done for you, okay? And so that they don't have to invite themselves to the table. You are the one. I like to say each one, pull one. Each one, pull one. You know what? When you show up in this way, when you serve in this way, maybe you'll even end up serving the people around the table and equipping them and mentoring them about how to serve in parallel with how you lead and when you lead, right? Okay, so that's what it means to show up at the table. That's what it means to be at the table. And at the end of the day, that's what leadership is all about. Celebrating, honoring, appreciating, respecting, lifting up, and serving other people. Leadership, at the end of the day, is about who you are. Who you are. It's really not about your technical skills. In fact, when you get into, higher positions, nobody cares about your technical skills. The higher up in the organization you go, the less you need your technical skills anyway. But it's not about your technical skills, your product know-how. It is about who you are first and foremost. Okay? Now, I've been blessed to be able to teach transformational leadership all over the world. And I know when I was looking for books and articles and, doing my scholarly thing, I couldn't find any books about leadership that focused on who you are. Okay, this was about 20 years ago. And then I did another search about 10 years ago. Then another. There are very few books out there. And so I decided to write one myself. And the book is called Flawless Leadership, Connecting Who You Are to What You Know and Do. Flawless leadership. Okay, and I talk about the being aspect of leadership, again, because most people don't get it. I like to keep things simple. So when I think about leadership, I think about leadership as a three-legged stool, right? It's about your knowledge, what you know, it's about what you do, and who you are. Okay, and so those three legs of the stool, if you take one of those legs off, you got a wobbly kind of stool, right? Okay, so you can't have leadership without all three of those things. But what most people don't get is that who you are, who you be, undergirds everything else. Okay? It shapes what you know, what you take in, and it shapes what you do and how you do what you do. So the knowing and the doing are important. But what's even more important is who you be. Dr. Maya Angelou says that people won't remember what you say or do, but they will remember how you make them feel. And how you make people feel is a function of who you are. I'm a person of faith, and so I also believe it's a function of whose you are. And that determines how you show up and how you lead. Now, on the cover of my book, I'll just show it to you quickly. There is hope you can see that on the screen. It's kind of shiny, but there's a concentric circles. And if you live in the United States or anywhere where there's a store called Target, kind of looks like a big target, like an archery target, right? Okay, but this concentric circles ring has one more ring than Target. And I picked that symbol for my book because I wanted to be subversive. And I wanted to be a little countercultural. That symbol is actually an Adinkra symbol that comes from the Akan people of West Africa. And the Adinkra symbol system, in our Western mind, we tend to equate them with the alphabet. No, they're not alphabetic. Those symbols are stories. So in that ring of concentric circles is a story. And the synthesis of the story is about leadership. That symbol is called the Adinkra Hene, which means the leader of leaders. So it's the leader of all the symbols, of all the stories, right? I also picked that symbol because it's not a symbol that you're going to see in most places, right? So I kind of wanted to mess with your mind a little bit, okay? And it's also for me a symbol of my peoples. It's a symbol for being, okay? Being authentically who you are. Leading from that place. Showing up at the table from that place. Showing up with your authentic voice, right? It's also a symbol of connection, and there's a ripple effect implied in that concentric circle. And one of the things I write about and teach about also is legacy leadership. And so in my cultures of origin, we think about legacy not as something that happens at the end of your life, but something that is ongoing, it's cyclical, it's happening all the time. With every breath, with every phone call, with every text, with who you include or exclude at your table, right? We are creating our legacy every single day, 365, 24/7. Now, I want to just check on the time and make sure that I have do I have about 5 more minutes or so?
Yes, absolutely, Gloria.
Is that okay?
Wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I want to share a poem with you. I often share poems when I teach, when I speak, and for years I shared other people's poems. And somebody came up to me, I don't know, probably 30 years ago, and they said, Gloria, that's not how I know you. Like, you write poems. Why don't you share your own poems? And I'm going like, what a concept. Great advice, right? So now I share my own poetry. And this poem is in several of my books. It's one of my most requested poems. This is a poem that I call Song to Myself, because it's kind of a preachy kind of poem, okay? It's a telling you what kind of thing to do poem. And I figured, if I'm going to preach a bit, I might as well start with myself, right? I also share this poem with you because, a lot of people want to be where I am, okay? They want to do what I do. They want to know more about, well, so how did you do that, right? And I love to share, and it takes much more than 45 minutes or an hour to share all of that with you. But this is a little bit more about how I got to be where I am today and how I got to be who I am today. So this poem is called Song to Myself. Song to Myself. It doesn't matter to me what you do or where you work. I want to know who you are when the sun goes down. It doesn't matter to me how much bread you can afford to put on your own table. I want to know if you will knead and bake the bread and share your blessings at somebody else's table. I want to know if you can look into the eyes of the young woman who sleeps with fear each night. The one who dared to walk away from the hands that pummeled her. I want to know if you can share her pain. It doesn't matter to me what neighborhood you live in or what kind of car you drive. I want to know what drives you, what compels you to follow your soul's longing. I want to know what pierces your heart, awakens you at night, and inspires you to devote yourself to whomever or whatever moves you. I want to know how many times you've opened your heart and your hand to your homeless brother or sister. I want to know if you will sit in the quiet, dark hours between midnight and dawn, listening to another's heart song. It doesn't matter to me how many unspeakable secrets you have. I want to know if you will share your secrets to liberate your demons so they don't devour you or those you love. I want to know if you are willing to look foolish to embrace your bliss. I want to know if you will grasp the sleeve of a nameless elder stumbling on his way and lead him in from the cold. I want to know if you will throw away your cloak and show your heart, if you will dare to wear your soul on the outside. It doesn't matter to me how many mountains you've climbed or will climb. I want to know if you've fallen down in the valley of despair. I want to know if you've scarred your knees on the stones of self-abandonment. I want to know how long you've been hidden in the shadows of hypocrisy, prejudice, addiction, abuse. I want to know if you will stop and light a candle and pray for others who will surely wander there. It doesn't matter to me what you say you will do for others. I want to know if you will act with courage and conviction, if you will daily cradle the frail hand of your mother when she no longer knows your name. I want to know if you will look into the hazel, gray, or ebony eyes of a stranger and say, yes, 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 to affirm your brother, your sister, yourself. I want to know if you will take the time and be still and call the names and pass the cup to honor the ancestors who cleared new ground and broke bread for you and your children. It doesn't matter to me that you have a past. I want to know if you will celebrate your present. I want to know if you will take a stand and declare yourself and sing, I am, boldly and with rejoicing to anyone, anywhere, without apologies or regrets. I want to know. So whether we are conscious of it or not, we make an impact on people. Every single day, 24/7, 365. And I want you to ask yourself, who is welcome here? Who is included? Who belongs? Are you equipping yourself, positioning yourself to belong? You're already qualified. How are you equipping yourself and positioning yourself to belong? And who else are you pulling with you along the way? Thank you for the opportunity to be here again, and Mercy. Let's thank you.
Oh my goodness. I am speechless, Gloria. I was already nervous in the beginning that with some of the IT stuff, but I was doing myself because some IT people or couldn't come here. On top of that, I'm bringing you, and I even forgot to say the name of the title, A Seat or the Table, which grabbed my attention from the beginning. We talked about it also, but what you just explained, oh my goodness, my heart is full, but I'll just open it for everybody here who's watching. And I got some comments. One lady actually texted me also, who I was helping her in some of the things as she was doing. But anyway, this is just unbelievable. So anyway, I'll open it for if you guys have any questions, anything you want to, please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, if nobody starts, I can just tell one thing here. I read this book, I think a couple of years or 1 year after I met Gloria, and there was one thing, it's on the Gloria, you must know that I am an instrument of soul, where you kind of discover yourself or find yourself, or the relationship with yourself, and some of those things. Those things intrigue me. And later I know I was and I related, or I resonated with you, the things that you said that you did not know about leadership. And I don't know how that is possible, but at the same time I related that because I did not know the word leadership. I did not know what that means.
Yeah.
As I became more and more student of that, I crave for that, and I want to be better at that. I want to spread that knowledge also as much as possible from the youth age or whatever it is. And I learned so many things. And in doing so, of course, some of the things I started doing, of course, that Gloria started this pass it on, and the group, the book, the venture, and whatever you call that, that's unbelievable. I got two of them for my daughter and my for niece already. That was like 2-3 years ago, Gloria. I can't remember, but this is just unbelievable. I am speechless.
Oh, mercy. Well, you know what? Thank you for saying that about leadership, because what I didn't say and what I would like to say here is the more I learn about leadership, the more I understand that there are, there, uh, like I said, I was built, I think, to be a scholar, but not in the academy. So I do what we call engaged scholarship, just working in real time, in real life, in communities and villages, in organizations, etc. But the more I learn about leadership, the more I realize that that domain is such a, I'm going to say, a walled off domain, and there are people in charge of what gets published and who gets published and all of that, which means that, when I was looking up for models of leadership, I was only looking in what was the published canon. And when I was initially looking, I was looking at written material. But the more and more research I do, and the more and more engaged conversations I have with leaders all over the world, I am finding materials from other cultures, Sheikh, that honor leadership in the family. Okay, mothers. I mean, mercy, what else are we if we're not leaders, right? How do you parent children without, children do not come with a guidebook. And honoring community stewards, and honoring ways of leading that we wouldn't even recognize in the so-called Western canon of leadership studies. And so it's no wonder I didn't know that word. But when I look back again at my personal village, when I look back at all my aunties and uncles and just my mother's side of the family, I'm going like, yeah, her, right? And all of these people have been, they've just poured blessing into me and poured leadership blessing into me. Now, as a kid, was I, did I have that language? No, but they formed me. They shaped me. The churches that I was a part of, my neighbors and my neighborhood, all of those people were pouring blessing into me and shaping me and forming me into the leader that I am today. And now we are beginning, even in the Western world, to recognize those other ways of knowing and being and doing leadership, so to speak. So I just want to, put a pin on that. And the other thing I want to say, thanks for lifting up my books. But I have a funny story if nobody else has a question that I'd like to share with you about one of the books. So I just want to hit the pause button in case there are questions.
I do have a question.
Okay.
So since I've got your captive audience, and there's been so much that is so intriguing about what you said, firstly, thank you. Thank you, because you speak from a level of heart, soul, mind, body, and spirit. So when the words are flowing through you, we know that it is flowing through you, and that you are being a vessel of thoughtfulness and kindness and hope that people need to listen into very carefully. And I think that, from a lot of what you have said today, it was not just a keynote speech. There was a depth to it that if we actually go back and listen to this very carefully, we're going to find that there's a lot of nuances in our life that we've taken for granted. And I know and the whole platform right now is for young titans, young leaders. But more than that, there are people listening to you from all platforms, all the social media. So this will resonate for a lot of people at the moment. And the things that stood out for me is when you spoke about legacy, you spoke about voice, you spoke about authenticity, you spoke about stop being a copycat. And I think that one of the things that all adds value is when you look at all of them in its entirety, is that there are young leaders right now who are listening to so many people, so many platforms. They're reading so many books. And what they do is they become so stuck in one person's methodologies and one person's way of thinking. They forget how to listen to their inner voice, to find their authentic self. So as we speak about find your voice and your authentic self, nobody actually says to them what they need to listen into.
Mm.
And I'm finding that when you spoke into diversity, that is to understand that where each individual comes from in their life story
Yes.
helps to build them into who they are.
Yes.
And I feel that if their authenticity comes from their cultural beliefs, their wisdom, their knowledge, their expertise, they can find their voice. So if we took all of that together, how would you suggest young people right now embarking on a life where they want to live a legacy, not leave a legacy? There's a difference. Most people are wanting to leave a legacy when they're old and decrepit and they want to leave a building with their name on it. I believe in living a legacy where your everyday actions and interactions speak into how you add value to people and serve them.
Yes.
So if there are young people listening now, what are some of the areas you've found that can help them to live a legacy where they embrace the true nature of who they are and they use those strengths to add value to others and they create the table for others to sit at?
Mercy. I love your question, Arthi. And I'm going to say back at you. You know, it's hard to see in other people what you don't already have in yourself. So thank you for seeing me and hearing me. And that question I love. You know, I often talk about how, I talked about my personal village and how my elders formed me, shaped me. And I truly believe that we have missed about 2 generations, maybe 2.5 generations of pouring blessing into for all kinds of reasons. You know, our cultures are fragmenting, families are fragmenting, lots of different reasons. But here's what I would advise in terms of being not just in touch with, but in tune with who you are and your authentic voice. And there are 3 very simple questions that are pretty deep. On the surface, they're simple, okay? But they're deep questions. And the 3 questions are: what makes you cry? What makes you weep? I'm just saying, not just, like, little Debbie. No, what makes you weep? What brings you to the ground? What brings you to your knees crying? Okay. So that's question number 1. Another question is, what makes you sing? What makes you sing? And I'm not talking about, being in tune, singing la 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 with somebody else. I'm talking about just using your voice, right? And just opening up and not caring who is listening, right? And the third question is, what makes you laugh? What brings you joy? Okay, not happiness, but joy. Joy and happiness are often confused. They are different. Okay, laughter comes from within, not laughing at somebody, but laughter comes from within. Joy comes from within. Okay, we are blessed with laughter and joy as babies. Okay, and over the years, we kind of get it smacked out of us, right? Okay, we are blessed with being able to cry, to communicate when we are babies. Okay, we have no other language, okay, that people recognize, that older people recognize, right? So we cry if we're hungry. We cry if we're hurting. We cry, if we're wet. Okay, we need to be changed or whatever. So I'm talking about these 3 things because these are questions that help us get at who we were born to be and actually who we were, unless we were, living in a circumstance that was so incredibly horrific and traumatic that those things are lost almost from birth, right? Most of us don't have that kind of trauma in our life. We have traumas, but we don't have that kind of, and, but by the time we're 5 or 6 years old, most of us have forgotten how to cry or laugh or sing, okay? And certainly by the time that we're 9 or 10, we have no memory. We have no memory, conscious memory. And so when you ask yourself those questions, and this is not something that you can answer, and have a light answer. These are questions to think into, to live into, to help you remember who you were born to be, who you are born to be. I have been very blessed in my path, Arthi, to get Gloria's groove back is what I call it. When I went into IT, I got my little door popper, my little door swiper thing, with my number on it, not my name. And I started just leaving things, like I said, in the parking lot. But that last 10 years in high tech, my job, during the day while I was working and while I was home was to get my groove back. Okay, to get Gloria back, okay, and to really live into those questions. And so it's not an overnight affair, okay, it's a process. It's going to take time, and don't trust the first answer, because it's, it may be true, but there's a deeper truth that lies beneath that. So go deeper and deeper and deeper, and have people, who know you, who love you, who you trust, who don't want anything from you, to reflect back to you. Because people are good reflectors. They're good mirrors, right? And they can help us relearn who we are. And once you do that, let me tell you something. The world is your oyster because you have freedom. You're not tied to the agenda that somebody else has for you. You're not tied to being a copy, a facsimile of somebody else. You're not tied to the constant chatter that you have in your ears from our daily culture, our daily bath of information, right? And you can really show up in your own two shoes and your own authenticity. It's a long answer to a short question.
Wonderful. Ron, anything from you?
No, thank you, Gloria. Well, maybe just one thing, Gloria. You are a self-described introvert. How would you help those who feel that I am so introverted that I don't feel comfortable being out front, being a leader? How would you address that person?
That's a great question. Ron, the advice that I would give, I was just thinking about it first. Introverts have a longer pathway, a longer neural pathway, actually. So I would say basically the same thing that I'm saying here is be yourself. Be yourself. Don't try to pretend to be an extrovert. I use this language and I'm going to use it in a different kind of way right now. I extrovert my energy. I put it out there when I'm in a platform like this or when I'm teaching or whatever, because those are the gifts that God gave me to serve and equip others. But as an introvert, knowing that that's my temperament, that's how God designed me, right? Knowing that to recharge my batteries, I need alone time, okay? To recharge my batteries, I need to just be still or walk or go down by the ocean or the whatever, right? And so I know those things about myself and I take good care to provide those kinds of things for myself, but don't change a thing about you. Let me tell you something. This is what I used to do in one of my companies where a party was, all these extroverted people and I'm going like, oh my God, please get me out of here. Right. And so I made friends with people who were extroverted. Now, I wasn't consciously doing this, or they would befriend me because they knew that I was, this kind of quiet person. And they would kind of grab me or I would grab them and I would stand next to them at the party. right? And so it was like guilt by association, GILT, right? So they would be doing the talking and, and I was standing next to them and I would kind of get the, the updraft, the benefit from being next to them because they were talking and I'm going, I'd smile and but I didn't have to talk. I didn't have to exert my energy, which for me was a blessing. So that's another strategy. But the other thing I want to say is John and I, my husband and I have a daughter, and we're all introverts. Believe it or not. So can you imagine 3 introverts in the same house? Okay. But my daughter is just, she's an amazing young woman. And she got a scholarship to a private college that we were wondering, like, how are we gonna swing this, right? But she got a 2/3 scholarship for leadership at this private college. And she wondered how she got it. And I said, Quinn, you got it because you serve. That's who you are. You got it because she's an artist as well. I said, you got it because you're an artist and you show up, but you don't toot your own horn. Okay. I said, you got it because you serve and you lead from wherever you happen to be in the circle. If you see somebody on the edge, on the margin, you're the one who goes out and extends a hand. Okay. You're the one. And so you can lead. Okay. You can lead from wherever you are, however God made you. And again, don't pretend to be somebody you're not. As an introvert, that's actually more energy than you have to spare. So use the energy that you have as an introvert and, be authentic from that place. Be in integrity. Stand in your own 2 shoes and serve and lead and be who you are from that place. It's a beautiful, powerful place to be. Yeah.
Gloria,
No, it's very well said, or you give a lot of people hope.
Thank you. Yeah.
Gloria, I have a question. I mean, I was listening so profoundly, and it's an excellent thing. It touched our heart. 2 things I found out. One is you recognize yourself, and then others. So you feel the pain, you plan to serve, you do everything for others. But when you think of you, and I'm a very young person, how do you recognize you? What are the things that belong to you that you can dedicate for others? I just before you ask your answer, give me one thing. When I was very young, like 5 to 7 years old, my mother was going to medical school, and I was with my father in a village, Yes. And but my father was a great orator, so he was invited to speak in big gatherings. But he would not leave me home because I was a girl or whatever. He would take me along. But before he speaks, he will lift me and stand me on the table in front of him. And he said that, okay, my daughter is going to recite a poem. And I would recite a poem with a pant and frock and all these things. And I think that has inspired me that, yes, I can speak in front of people. I have that. And I think I forgot about that, but always it reminds me that I can do that. So, one is that parent's role, one is your own role to identify yourself. So how would you do that? I mean, what is your advice to the young people? This is Young Titans platform. How would you tell them, how would you recognize the parts that you have, the architecture that you have, and then prepare yourself for giving it to others?
That's great. I love the image of your father lifting you on the table. Oh, mercy. What a great question. So again, I had folks in my life who I would say whispered in my ear qualities about me, again, reflecting back to me. But for myself, what I knew about myself is that I loved to dream. Now, at the time, I got scolded for, staying late after school to help the teachers, but I could help the teachers erasing the board or washing the board or whatever we were doing. And it was total silence in the room because the teacher was grading papers and I was washing the board. Okay. And then afterwards, I would maybe sit outside the school, on the playground, and I would just sit with my back against the wall, just dreaming. The playground was totally empty. And so what I didn't realize at the time was that I was actually renewing myself as well. I was renewing myself. And I was spending time, if you will, doing the things that fed me. And so as a way of knowing that, as a piece of maybe counsel to younger people, know what fuels your soul. And the way that you know that, is to put yourself in a place, in a quiet place, and a surrounded place, it doesn't really matter, but where you can lose yourself in your own thoughts about you and the way that you know is that you lose all track of clock time. The Greeks have many words for time. One of them is chronos, right? That's clock time. You lose all track of time. It's like, oh, wow, an hour has gone by and I don't even know where it went. And you enter that space of what we call kairos, which is another kind of time. And kairos to the Greeks is the time of the gods. Okay, they had many gods, so they would say the time of the gods. In my world, my faith world, we would say the time of God. You're entering into a little slip of eternity, and you lose all track of time. And so for me, I would know when my mom called me by all three of my names. Yeah, Gloria Jean McEwen, right? That I was in that zone, that I was in that place, okay? And so as an adult, as a 20-something-year-old, as a 25-year-old, 21-year-old, what you do is you think back, you put yourself back into those places where you belong. That's what feeds your soul. That's how you know that you know that you know that you know. Okay. And you begin to cultivate and amplify those things over time, and you make room for them. And you prioritize them. They don't get to the bottom of your list. They're at the top of your list. Okay. If it works for you to have somebody in your life as an accountability person, you engage that person. You say, me with this or that. I know one of the things that I did when I was trying to get my group back was I made myself a pair of earrings. It's hard for me to wear most earrings because I'm allergic to certain kinds of metals. So I made myself a pair of earrings, and they jingled. And they had, I put those little masks on, like the dramatist masks, tragedy and comedy. I put blue, one of my favorite colors of blue, like your shirt, Ron, and some other things that make them jingle. And the reason I actually had bells in my ears, literally bells ringing, little ting, 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 ting. And every time I would shake my head, they would jingle. And the reason I did that was because I know, okay, from my studies and cross-cultural work and so on and so forth, is that bells call us. They call us to prayer. They call us to lunch. They call us to dinner. They call us to change classes. At the end of one class, the bell rings. Okay, but they're calling instruments. And so for me, they were a reminder of remember who you are. Remember your calling. Remember what God put you on the planet for. And I wore those earrings probably for a couple of years. Most of the time, those were they reminded me to remember who I am. So like I said, it's a process. You may not get there overnight. It's not instant like our food these days, right?
Wow,
But believe and keep going, keep going. You'll get there.
that's profound. Ian, anything from you, sir?
Well, no, I just, I mean, there's plenty for me normally, but I mean, I'm just so much in awe and appreciation of both you and your husband, Gloria, and John as well. And you know, if there was anything more, I would love. You had a story you wanted to share with us earlier on. If time allows, I would rather have you tell a story than me asking you anything, because, you know, and we appreciate your time. And you know, if you are watching this, you know, if you are a leader, then you need to share this with other people, because what we've just heard, it's priceless. So the best thing you can do for other people is to share what you've just learned. You know, not only teach it, but share it. And I think you should definitely share it. But please, Gloria, if you have that story and time allows, I'm all ears. I would love to listen to it.
Well, I maybe another time for the story. It's a longer story,
Okay.
but I love what you just said, Jan, and you know how much I appreciate and love you as well. Sorry, Arthi. I love him too. But I love what you just said. You know, it echoes what Sheikh said at the beginning. You know, I teach as well because I learn, and you know, the best way to help other people is to tell somebody, share some, you know, share the wealth. You know, that's what we're here to do: to live, to love, and to serve. So thank you again, everyone.
Well, thank you all. In the interest of time, we're going to end. We went a few minutes over, but it was well worth it. I enjoyed thoroughly. I'm going to have to go through this again. And I say the same thing to everybody who's watching it or watching it later at the recording. I see a lot more people are watching it at the recording time than at live. But either way, you can always send us some questions to each and everybody here. Dr. Halida is in Johns Hopkins. Once again, Jan Roberts, he's an eloquent speaker, has his own speaker club and everything, currently from the Scotland now. Arthi Moore, she is a dynamic leader, unbelievable leader in Africa. And then Ron Cooper here, he is a mentor, guide, and a relationship coach for many. So I am very thankful to have you all here, and people who could not join or who are going to watch it later. So absolutely, I don't take it lightly, but at the same time, anything that I can do from my end, please let me know. And any comments, anything you would like to see at the Young Titans platform YTP here, please put a comment or send an email, or however you have all the ways to these days to communicate. So whichever is your way, and please share as Jan said. But thank you so much again, and thanks to Gloria. It is just a heart full of talks and nuggets and knowledge that we learned today. So with that, I'm going to conclude and end this meeting. So thank you all. Have a great.
Thank you very much. It was
Thank you. Thank you. Have a blessed
Thank you very
day.
much. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.